Hello everyone, my name is Dalton and welcome to my channel. Today I am bringing you a LGBT Pride inspired recommendation video. So it's Pride Month, obviously, pretty excited about that. I'm going to Chicago for Chicago Pride here in a couple days, pretty excited about that as well. But when I was in college, if you didn't know, I was in English and writing double major, and I didn't technically need to have a minor because I was a double major, but before I was a double major, I was planning on being a gender studies minor. So to say the least, I have quite a few LGBT recommendation books, like books to recommend. I read quite a few in college, and obviously I want to read stories where I can see myself in them. So I have a couple romance novels that I'm going to recommend that I enjoyed when I read them and that sort of thing. So without further ado, let's get into the LGBT/Pride recommendation video. The first book that I actually want to talk about, I don't have a physical copy, but I'll throw it up on the screen, is Under the Udola Tree. I don't remember who the author is, but it is a Nigerian-based novel, basically just following this young girl as she grows up and figures out that she is a lesbian. It was very interesting reading this because I obviously live in America, so I don't know a lot about other cultures and that sort of stuff. So it was very interesting to see Nigerian culture and how they react to queer people. And needless to say, it was not a very happy story. It's quite tragic. A lot of very bad things happen to the main character and some of her friends and that sort of stuff. She has to escape a lot of prejudice and that sort of thing. It's a very sad novel. It's a very good novel. The writing was fantastic. So I would highly recommend Under the Udola Tree. And then the next book that I want to recommend is To Paradise by Hana Yanagihara. If you haven't seen any of my videos, I adore her. I love her writing. I will read anything she publishes for the rest of my life, to be honest. I love her writing so much, and I don't care what the story's about. I will read it. If you don't know, this book takes place in like 3 different timelines. One's in the past, one's kind of in the present, like the 1980s during the AIDS epidemic, and then one is in the future, like 2080 or 2090 or something like that. But I wanted to focus on the first 2 parts because they are following queer characters. The first part is like a reimagined version of America where queer marriage is legal, and our main character basically falls in love with a man who is planning to steal all of his wealth. And regardless of what this man plans to do, he's so head over heels for him. I really enjoyed the first story. I had some issues with it, just like the reimagining of America where queer people can exist but black people can't. That was very strange to me, and I think that should be critiqued. But the longing, the desire, the emotion that Hana Yanagihara is able to write in her writing is incredible to me. Like the understanding of human emotion and connection, it's just insane that somebody is able to put everything that somebody feels to paper like this. Similarly, with the second story in this novel, the first part of the second story, we're following a younger gay man as he is in love with an older lawyer. And we just kind of get brief glimpses of their life together and his past that's haunting him still, even though he's trying to find his future. And it's just, again, the emotion that she's able to put down into these stories is just incredible. I felt his longing, I felt his pain, everything. And I loved the first 2 stories. I loved the last story as well, just for different reasons, but I would highly recommend this. And you could technically read A Little Life because there are a lot of queer themes in that novel, a lot of queer characters. However, I really think people should give this a chance. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, neither is A Little Life, but because that one's so popular, I figured I had to mention this one instead. The next book that I want to recommend is A Single Man by Christopher Isherwood. I read this one in college again. I'll throw a picture up on the screen. And this follows an older man's it follows a day, I think it's one single day of an older man's life after his husband, who really wasn't his husband because in the time period that they were together, they couldn't get married, after his husband passed away. And you literally just follow this man as he goes through his singular day, dealing with the incredible grief that he has, but he cannot share or show to anyone because they technically couldn't be together. It's incredibly sad. It is. However, Isherwood's writing, his wit, there's so many parts to this novel, and it's not very long. I think it was like 200 pages or something. There's so many parts to this novel that just were so good for so many different reasons. And I mean, the beginning, he's writing about how the body wakes up, and it's just incredible. Out of any book on this list, I think you should read all of them, but this one really is incredible. And I don't hear a lot of people talking about it because it is an older classic now. But god dang, it was so good. And the next book I want to talk about is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. I couldn't do a list of LGBT book recommendations without having Giovanni's Room on it. I have read it twice. I have loved it every single time. It's despicable, it's disgusting, it's heartbreaking, it's beautiful, it's lovely. Honestly, I think everybody should read James Baldwin. Read everything you can by him because everything's incredible. But Giovanni's Room specifically just has such a dear place in my heart. I feel for Giovanni, I feel for David, I feel for their longing, I feel for their love that turns to hate, and it's so beautiful. It's so sad, it's so tragic, but it's so good. You have to read it. Then the next book that I want to talk about is Ruby Fruit Jungle by Rita Mae Brown. This again is kind of another coming of age story as a young girl realizes that she has feelings for other girls. And I think she grows up in Florida, I want to say in the 70s or 80s, maybe 60s. It's an older novel now, but she's growing up realizing things about herself that are not allowed to happen. And a lot of bad things happen to her due to these feelings that she's trying to work through and understand, and she's getting persecuted from it. So eventually she takes her life from Florida after she's kicked out of school to go to New York and try to make a life for herself there, where she meets a lot of different women, a lot of different things happen to herself. I don't think, it's been a while since I read it. I don't believe she's a lesbian. I don't want to put a label to her. She's definitely queer. I believe she has sex with both men and women in the novel. So I don't want to pigeonhole her into one thing, but it's an incredible deep dive into somebody's psyche, trying to survive in New York City off of nothing because her parents don't have anything to give her. The one shot she had in school got destroyed. It's incredible to see how resilient she can be, the main character, how witty she can be, because I remember her being quite the character. But Ruby Fruit Jungle was such a great novel. I would highly recommend. Then the next book that I want to talk about is actually fantasy, and that is pretty much all of N.K. Jemisin. I'm holding this up, the Inheritance Trilogy, because this deals a lot with gender, because there's a lot of gods in this novel, and these gods don't particularly have a set gender, but they can change it. A lot of them appear a specific gender. Like the one I'm thinking about, he appears as a man, the other one appears as a woman. However, their love is not confined to these human gender norms, basically. So they can express themselves. The one can be a female, the one can be a man. They can express themselves in different ways. So a lot of talk is brought up about gender and how it doesn't really matter, because it doesn't really matter, and sexuality and that sort of thing, and free love, and that it's just, in fantasy, it's not something you see a lot, but in N.K. Jemisin it is. Also by N.K. Jemisin, The City We Became Most of the characters in that novel are queer, and it's lovely. It is set in our reality, so it's not technically fantasy. It's like a paranormal fantasy or something like that, because it's set in New York, but it's still so good, and there's so many queer characters. I actually love that book. It's probably my favorite book by her. Love this series too. It's just not my favorite. But I did want to recommend a fantasy novel. So yeah. Another fantasy recommendation is Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This too has such good queer representation. There is a queer male character and quite a few, I know I can remember two at least, queer female characters. And a main part of this story is the two females falling in love. This is a chunky book. Wasn't my absolute favorite. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because there was so much I loved about this novel. However, I do feel like a lot could have been cut out with the romance. I didn't love the romance, even though it is such a big part of the story. Didn't love it. And I wish those chunks that were cut out would have went to the ending, because everything wrapped up within like 20 pages. Like I said, I did love a lot of this book. A lot of the world building was excellently done. Such a fantastic, interesting world to be in. It's long, but it's good. I liked it. Obviously things that I didn't love about it, but I would definitely recommend it. So the next book that I want to recommend is wildly popular. I think they're making a movie of it now, and that is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I don't know anybody who hasn't read this. It's pretty short. It's just a nice little romance novel. I really enjoyed it. Not a whole lot of thought behind it, to be honest. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. I know romance isn't everybody's cup of tea, but I found this one quite enjoyable. It's technically adult, but it's kind of still YA because the characters are quite young still. I think they're only like 18 or 19, maybe 20. But yeah, it basically follows the son of the US president and one of the princes of England as they fall for each other. I was in a relationship at the time, and I found myself connecting and seeing my relationship inside of this novel, and it was just very nice. And that's part of the reason I think I like this novel as much as I did. Should I reread it? I don't know if I would like it as much since that relationship has since ended, but another romance that I don't see talked about quite as often is Autoboyography by Christina Lauren. Christina Lauren has a lot of romance novels, like a lot. But this, I believe, is their only queer one. So basically, we follow a young boy who decides to take a class where you basically have to write a manuscript in 1 semester. And then there's this big prize, I believe, at the end of the semester, and if your story wins, you get a scholarship or something. It's been quite a few years since I've read this. But this year, the previous year's winner, who's actually getting his novel published, decided to come back and assist this class with helping write a manuscript or a novel. Needless to say, they sort of fall in love. The guy who decided to come back and help, and the main character who is taking that class. However, the guy who decided to come back and help is Mormon. So this book deals a lot with the Mormon religion and why, basically just the trauma with Mormon religion. It does it in a very nice way, I will be honest. I don't know a whole lot about religions, period, because I don't care, but like, it was very interesting to read something about Mormonism, because it is a very strict religion. Like, you're not allowed to have sex, you're not allowed to do any sort of adultery, you have to go on a mission, all that sort of stuff. So it was very nice to read this character who was struggling to understand himself and not fight against his religion necessarily, but try to wrap his head around why he was not allowed to be happy in the confines of this religion. Why would a religion and God and this sort of stuff, why would they not allow you to be happy? So I thought that was excellently done. Can't say that Mormons would love it, obviously, but I really enjoyed this novel, and like I said, not a lot of people talk about it. It's one of the very few YA romance novels that I actually enjoyed. But yeah. Alright everyone, that is my list of recommendations. Leave me some in the comments if you have any great Pride reads. Let me know in the comments if you have any good LGBT reads, any great Pride things. What do you have going on for Pride? Are you going anywhere? Are you doing anything? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you. Peace out. Bye.